Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst with Money and Markets here, as I am each and every week, sitting down with Green Zone Fortune's co-editor Charles Sizemore. It is time for Investing with Charles. Charles, again, coming to us from Peru. Welcome. Glad you are joining us. I've got a very interesting topic I want to just jump right into today. And it's kind of been one that over the course of not just this week, but probably the last several weeks has really been on the back of investors' minds, especially tech investors, as this stock has faced significant headwinds surrounding a whistleblower, a report from the Wall Street Journal that's been relatively extensive, and a mass of just critique of upper management that suggests that all the ills of society can be traced back to this one company. And the company we're talking about here is Facebook Incorporated, which trades on the NASDAQ under FB. And you know, I'm not a huge Facebook user. I mean, I have it. I don't really post on it. I don't really get on it all that often. I'm more of a Twitter kind of a guy. But the pressures with Facebook have been, at least headline-wise, fairly significant. Is that kind of what your interpretation is? I want to talk about that before we start getting into all the technicals about Facebook and comparison. So,
well, I guess before we even go to there, first question, how many Facebook products do you personally use?
Facebook.
Facebook.
I don't really use Instagram that often. I don't use.
I'm sure you have family members that do, though.
Oh, for sure. Oh, without
probably
question.
Most of your family.
Yeah, without question. I probably use it the least.
Yeah. So I am proud to say, I sound like a recovering alcoholic here. You know, my name is Charles, and I'm a recovering, whatever, social media addict. But I punted on all social media products. I still have LinkedIn, I think, or something. I don't know, but I never look at it. But I got rid of Facebook and never had Instagram, and I've never been happier. I'm clean. I'm living clean, and there is life after Facebook. But even me, like I use WhatsApp daily. That's a primary communication tool in South America. So we have friends and family in Peru and elsewhere in South America. WhatsApp is what you use to communicate. So it's really almost impossible to escape the Facebook, web. They've got you.
It is everywhere. They are very deeply ingrained in the social media landscape, not just here in the U.S., but I mean globally. They are everywhere, and
they're more outside, particularly with the. You can kind of get by without a Facebook page, right? I mean, I have, and I'm still breathing and living, and I think, unless I'm a figment of my own imagination. I don't know. We could get science fiction here, but I really can't function without WhatsApp. It's like that is a fundamental communication tool for me at this point. And if it was taken away, I just wouldn't talk to a lot of people. It would be that simple. So kind of the fundamental point here is this company is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It is really at this point, even with all these negative headlines, and we'll get into what those negative headlines were here in a minute, but it's a company that has kind of grown little by little to just kind of engulf the world. I mean, like they pretty well own social media, and it's almost hard to function in the modern world without at least one of their products. I mean, and pick one. It depends on what circle you're in, but it's almost impossible to function without access to the products.
And to put that in perspective, to put that in perspective, I was doing a lot of digging when we were discussing this topic, and I found kind of the actual and then estimated numbers of Facebook users here in the United States alone. In 2021, about 302 million users of Facebook. And if you consider that is a massive percentage of the entire population here in the U.S.
That's essentially everybody who's not an infant or in jail.
Basically, yeah. And if you're looking forward, that number is going to steadily increase over the years. By 2026, the estimated number of users in the U.S. of Facebook, 324, almost 325 million people using Facebook by 2026. That is a massive penetration of the market for Facebook.
Yeah, like I said, it's almost hard to function in the modern world without at least having access to their products. I mean, it is what it is in that respect. Now, what's interesting about that? Let's look at some of these headlines that have been rocking the company. We'll start with the January 6th Capitol riot. Facebook is being blamed for failing to moderate groups organizing for that. They're being blamed for spreading some of the misinformation that led to it to begin with. So like that's right off the bat, that's a really nasty, ugly headline. Is it completely fair? I don't know, but that's one of the Molotov cocktails being thrown at the company right now. Beyond that, they've been blamed for fanning civil war and genocide allegations in parts of Africa where hate spreads on Facebook, and the next thing you know, villagers are hacking each other to pieces. It's been Instagram in particular has been blamed for affecting the self-esteem of kids, but particularly teenage girls who, high school is hard enough when you're being bullied in person. Then at least you can get away from being bullied in person. You can leave the room, you can go somewhere. You can't really escape online bullying or, body shaming or whatever, like whatever the kids are doing to each other, you can't really escape that. Right. And particularly in Instagram, you post your best life. Right. And so everybody is only, it fuels jealousy and anxiety and the sense that other people are getting ahead and you're being left behind because you only see what they want you to see in their perfectly curated feed. So all of this is basically true. I don't know how you can really say it's not true. The question is, is it Facebook's fault, or are they kind of as much of a victim as anybody here, or should they be policing it more? And this is what all will be hashed out in the coming months, in the coming years. And this kind of brings me to one of my best, analogies here. I compare social media to tobacco. And I know that may sound a bit ridiculous. How are you comparing tobacco as a product you smoke or chew or whatever? How is that the same as a social media network? But it kind of is. As Mark Zuckerberg puts it, Facebook's a place where you can socialize, you get together, you form communities. Well, I enjoy having a cigar with my buddies now and then. I mean, it's a social bonding experience. It's nice. It's nice to sit around and use a tobacco product. It's enjoyable. I don't do it often, but it's enjoyable. Social media in moderation could be enjoyable, but like tobacco, there's some pretty serious negative consequences. It may not it is addictive. Like the same way nicotine is addictive, social media is wildly addictive. I mean, how many times do you find yourself just looking at your phone and, just flipping and refreshing? And it's addictive. Like it's compulsive. It's something that you compulsively do, right? And, some people are more susceptible to that than others, just like some people are more susceptible to being addicted to nicotine than others. It's, and then of course there are the extreme cases, obviously you're not getting cancer from Facebook, but it has led to some violent incidents and it has led to a lot of problems. So that's that's the analogy. And sadly, I think it's pretty apt.
And another parallel to look at here is that back in the early 90s, maybe starting even in the late 80s, but more specifically in the early 90s, companies like Philip Morris were coming under fire after, and I reference a whistleblower who came forward, testified, who actually went on, I believe, 60 Minutes, and talked about how upper management at companies like Philip Morris and others actively knew that cigarettes were causing health issues, but still promoting the product nonetheless. And here, fast forward to just over the course of the last couple months, Facebook is running into a similar issue where they have now not one, but two people who have come forward to claim that upper management at Facebook has understood the issues that the platform has created and has knowingly swept those issues under the rug or minimalized them, or I think even in some cases exacerbated them to make them even larger. And these issues range from, as you talked about, understanding the issues related to teenage girls and body shaming with Instagram. You've got a separate group of high individuals who are either high wealth or high profile, having their own set of rules for posting on Facebook that they don't necessarily have to follow the same rules the rest of us do. You've got drug cartels being allowed to utilize Facebook, and upper management not really doing a whole lot about that. It hasn't really, they just had their quarterly report this week. Revenue is still up for the quarter, but sales are slowing. Estimates are that, by this year, they will probably have annual revenue of around $119 billion. That could go up to about $166 billion by 2023, notwithstanding the slowdown here. But there are a lot of parallels we see here between your analogy with social media, Facebook specific, and tobacco. Currently, if we take a look at Facebook's stock chart, we'll flash it up here right now. For over the course of the 12 months, Facebook is up about 18%. This pales in comparison to technology gains. The average technology gains are right around 40%. Facebook currently trading about 10 to 15% below its 50-day simple moving average, and showing some downward signs. These reports aren't helping. It was a good quarter, but not as good as it should have been. That's going to weigh as well. So you've got a lot of headwinds here. And now you've got a coming possible congressional investigation, which again parallels big tobacco in terms of what could happen. And I think one thing when we were talking about this, you suggested looking up the stock Altria, which trades as MO, and specifically look at between 86 and 95 to kind of get a sampling of just exactly what these tobacco investigations
and why that date range? Why that date range? You and I are about the same age. We grew up in the 80s and 90s. As recently as the late 80s, you could still smoke on an airplane. I mean, like smoking was it was everywhere. It was ubiquitous. It was just part of the culture. It was fine. It wasn't controversial. It wasn't bad. It was just, that's what everybody did. Then there was really a shifting point where, all of the health allegations that had been around for decades finally got to be taken seriously. And then, next thing you know, there was a big congressional hearing and smackdown. That's where the government really, really smacked them around. And so you see the result in the share price. The shares of Altria, which was Philip Morris at the time, just cratered. It cratered there in the early 90s. But how long did it take them to recover? How long how long did it take for them to get right back to new all-time highs? It was no time at all. So what ended up happening? There was all sorts of new rules put on tobacco companies. They couldn't advertise anymore. They couldn't, the way they distributed their cigarettes was restricted. There were all these new rules, regulations, oversight, fines. It was just everything, right? And in the end, what happened? Well, the shares cratered initially, but then the companies adapted. And even though there are fewer smokers year after year after year, every year that passes, fewer people smoke cigarettes. And yet the company still manages to make money. They've managed to increase sales on a dollar basis, if not a unit basis. They've still managed to grow their top line and their bottom line quite handsomely, despite a very, very difficult environment. Why? A couple of reasons. One, much like Facebook, their product is addictive, right? Two, it's wildly profitable. Cigarettes are a high margin business. Social media is a high margin business. Social media is actually much higher margin than tobacco, but it's a wildly profitable business. So kind of the takeaway here is, it's looking really bad for Facebook right now. This is really, really bad publicity. And I don't know how far this will go. I really don't know to what ends, this is, how long does this drag on in Congress and court? I don't know. Nobody knows yet. We'll have to see. But in the case of tobacco, they rose from the ashes. Ashes, tobacco. That's actually a nice play on words I didn't even intend. Anyway, tobacco stocks ended up doing really well, even despite the regulatory crackdown. Because again, addictive products, still popular with a dedicated segment of the population likes their tobacco products and continues to buy them. and also monopolistic competition. They don't really, there's not a lot of cigarette producers out there. And so the ones that do exist get to enjoy kind of semi-monopoly pricing, right? Well, how many social media companies are there really at this point? There is Facebook and its empire. There's Twitter, which is much smaller. There's Snap, but there aren't that many. And there probably never will be, because what makes a social media network work is the network effect. You wouldn't be on Facebook if nobody else was on Facebook. You're on it because everybody else is on it. That's what makes it valuable to begin with, right? I'm on WhatsApp because everybody that I need to talk to is on WhatsApp. So that makes me believe that even if Facebook is in for kind of a just beat down session with Congress here, just, pretty much, the scene from Full Metal Jacket where they put soap in the sheets and just beat the dude. That's pretty much what Facebook is going to have to endure here for a while. But in the end, I don't think it blows the company up. There's just too much money to be made here. I think the stock, I think it would be something that, despite everything we've said, on a significant dip, buy it.
And to add to that, I looked up our green zone rating on Facebook, which is something you can access very easily by going to moneymarkets.com, typing in any ticker up in the top bar, and it'll give you our proprietary green zone rating based on our 6 metrics. Right now, Facebook is a 63, which is a bullish outlook for us, expecting the stock to actually outperform the market by 2x over the next 12 months. It rates very high on quality. It rates very high on growth, obviously kind of in the mid-range of value, volatility, and momentum, especially factoring in kind of what the stock has done over the last couple of weeks. And of course, let's
fix that on that. Let's go back on that though. It rates high on quality. Why? Like, what makes it a quality company? It's software. So yeah, they don't have a ton of fixed costs. It's infinitely scalable. Yeah, you have to buy more servers. You have to buy more people, particularly now. You have to buy fact check. There are expenses with running the business, of course, but it's software. It's an insanely high margin business. And that's like, our quality score really tends to favor tech companies because they tend to be capital light and have massive fat margins. Like that's the definition of a high quality company.
Facebook right now, gross margin of 88%. The industry average is 63%. Their return-ons for assets, equity, and investments are all double-digit positives, whereas the industry averages are all in the negative. So there's where your quality comes into play. Value-wise, it's trading at a PE ratio of about 24, not necessarily making it undervalued, but when you compare it against its peers, trading at a multiple of 58, it's more than half. It's trading more than half of the value for a PE ratio to its peers. So that's kind of a quick explainer into why the ratings are the way they are. In looking at our green zone ratings. Plus, again, size. It's almost a $1 trillion company. It's huge. It's massive. So it is obviously going to rank very low on size. As far as its momentum and volatility, kind of mid-range. We've seen a lot of upward movement, but that has been mixed with some downside pressure. They reached a 52-week high back in August, I think, right around August, September, and now they're paring back a little bit, but they are still positive for the 12-month period. I think you've got a situation here where Facebook is so deeply ingrained in society. When you're looking at 303 million users in the US alone, upwards of 326 million users by the end of 2024, that is a massive, penetration percentage for Facebook. And you just don't wipe that away.
You don't. I don't think you can. I don't think it's even possible at this point. So, what does the future look like for the company? Much like, what happened to tobacco? Tobacco is just like everything tobacco does is scrutinized and highly regulated. They pivoted to vape products. They pivoted to cannabis. They pivoted to other things away from just core cigarettes. They innovated new things that are just as, they're kind of in the same realm, but didn't require them to invest a whole lot of money to make those changes. Right, but they're also still a very highly regulated industry, and they operate kind of with shackles on, right? Like they basically are cuffed. And that's fine. They can still make money like that, because at the end of the day, it's basically it's not a monopoly, but it's essentially a monopoly. I will just call it that. Facebook is in a very similar deal. I think Facebook will likely be highly regulated. I think the government is going to have its nose in their business for the foreseeable future. I think there is going to be a lot more oversight of the company, and even Facebook. I mean, employees within the company knew that that there were issues. You know, and at the end of the day, you have to give Facebook a little bit of slack, because what they're doing is new. And while we can see some of the damage it does, it's new. Like, we're kind of learning this as we go, right? And so I think what ends up happening is Facebook will submit to, government oversight, and they'll be allowed to keep their empire, and they'll still mint money. They'll mint a little bit less. They'll probably have to pay more in taxes and penalties, and their growth plans may have to be monitored. I mean, there's going to be a price to pay, but ultimately, I don't think you can get rid of this business. I don't think it's too popular. I don't know what Americans would do if you took their Facebook and Instagram away. I don't. The wheels may just fall off. I don't know.
Most likely. Yeah. And I think when you talk about government oversight, I think this is a much more difficult battle than I think people realize. Holding a congressional hearing is great. It's good for headlines. It's certainly good for the Congress members that are up there testifying and can issue press releases to their constituents and say they did this, they did that. When we start talking about regulating something like social media, first off, we're dealing with the internet, which is already the Wild Wild West. And then we're also talking about individuals, which brings up a First Amendment type of a situation. And these are questions that are not going to be answered right away at all. These are things, if you're trying to hope or rest your laurels on self-policing, that's just a losing battle, because it's just
good luck with that, right?
So yeah, you've got a lot of issues. These are things that are going to be. It's going to be a slow walk. It's not going to be a fast run. Because number one, it's Congress, and Congress doesn't move with expediency on anything.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and again, you've got and this is a global company with global implications. So I don't think you just have to be focusing on the U.S., but you've got to look at this from a global perspective and a geopolitical perspective as well. And this is just not something that sets itself up. So they're going to endure some bad headlines. They're going to face some pressure with the stock price. It's going to go down, but I agree with you. I think it's going to go right back up, and you've got a company that's probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon. The dynamic may change a little bit. We may see some big departures or big additions to upper management, but other than that,
you'll see some differences to compliance. They'll bring in some big guns to beat the head of their compliance team, and it'll be partly for show, but also partly like legitimately bringing it in.
You'll see some Google execs that'll come out and decide they want to go work at Facebook for regulatory issues and things like that. But other than that, I just don't. I don't foresee there being a huge issue here. So I think that's kind of where we stand with it. Facebook can endure some pressure, but not anything that's going to melt the company away. Could be seeing a possible dip buying opportunity here, depending on where that dip goes. And of course, we'll keep you abreast of that here. So make sure you keep it locked in on our YouTube channel. Charles, thank you so much for joining us from the friendly vistas of Peru. Definitely appreciate your time each and every week. Make sure that if you aren't signed up or subscribed to our YouTube channel, you do so. You can do that by just on our YouTube page, just click that subscribe button, mash that notification bell, get notified each and every time we put out a new video. We've got a lot. We've got obviously Investing with Charles, Ask Adam Anything, where we sit down and talk with our chief investment strategist, Adam O'Dell. I've got the Bold and Bear podcast, which comes out on the weekend, and our marijuana market update as well. Plus, we're working on many other features, so make sure you check in with that. Also, the mothership is moneyandmarkets.com. Check that each and every day for safe, sound, smart, simple, profitable investment information for your portfolio. For Green Zone Fortune's co-editor, Charles Sizemore, I am research analyst Matt Clark, wishing everyone safe trading.